Before I start this review video, I just wanted to show this picture of Amy Rose after I did some touch-ups. So in the review, you're going to see some flaws, but this is what the figure looks like after I had about 10 minutes to work on it. The flaws were very minor. You'll see in the video. I just wanted to get out that this is what the figure looks like now, just in case anybody was concerned. Alright, now into the review. Hello out there, my friends! This is Wakeangel2K1 coming at you with a long-awaited review of the Jakks Pacific 30th Anniversary Amy Rose figure! Yes, I finally got one! And special thanks to Patreon supporter ZeustheFox, Zach, the guy who actually found it for me at a Target where he lives. Yes, the two of us have been relentlessly trying to get this Amy Rose figure, and he has gone above and beyond the Call of Duty, visiting, I think, 4 or 5 Targets that happen to be in his area, like, as often as he could, before finally finding one, which he sent to me, because he's just that awesome a guy. Zeus, I think you might just be my new best friend. Yep, that's it. You're my new best friend. That is who you are now. Amy Rose is in the standard blister bubble packaging with that 30th anniversary sticker and that picture of running Sonic. Nothing else other than the fact that the package has her name. If we look on the back of the box, you see the preview image of Amy Rose, sporting her 11 points of articulation, and her biography, a pink hedgehog who wields a huge hammer called the Pico Pico Hammer. And of course, the rest of the figures in the series consisting of the Neon Wave. I'm not going to go into any more conspiracy rants about how Jakks Pacific tried to sabotage Amy Rose by intentionally making a dumpster fire wave that would sell poorly so they can use it as an excuse not to make female characters in the future. But I am going to mention Red is Power, a fellow toy reviewer who got his Amy Rose a little bit before I did. And he came up with the theory that this is a cost-saving measure, that they had spent so much money making a whole bunch of different molds that they needed to save on one of the waves by making only one new mold, and then the rest of them being simple repaints. That could track. I mean, it's hard to say that the Sonic line is selling poorly because I have never seen Sonic toys stay in a store for more than a couple of days without selling out. So they had to be selling pretty decently. But I do believe that there is something that they could have done that would have been way better than Neon Wave. Okay, hear me out. If all you want to do is repaint and re-release existing molds and have Amy be the only exclusive mold, Supers. Okay. Re-release Super Sonic. As far as I'm aware, he hasn't had a re-release yet, so instead of this being like the 3rd or 4th time we get Modern Sonic, make it only the 2nd time we get Super Sonic. And then Super Tails and Super Knuckles only have to be repaints. Super Knuckles, all you have to do is remake him in like a hot fuchsia style pink to be his super form color. And Tails, you could recast him in like a fiery golden yellow or a golden orangish color to be his super form. Maybe if you're going to do any remolding, you could just turn his bangs upwards, and you wouldn't really need to make a new mold for it. Just take the same bang piece and assemble it differently, putting it upside down. And instead of a 10 ring, you could give him a little gold flicky to be like his little flicky minion that flies around him in a super form. Then, all of a sudden, everybody would want to buy the entire wave instead of having to suffer repaints that nobody likes trying to find an Amy. Then everybody would want all the figures, and this probably would have been one of the most well-received waves ever instead of one of the most derided waves. I mean, it couldn't be that hard for them to figure out, right? Anyway, that is my 2 cents on what could have been done. So now, the long-awaited Amy Rose figure review. Let's get her out of this box. Well, this is a little bit of a disappointment. I don't know how well it's showing up on the camera, but take a look at that. That is a big, gluey fingerprint on the back of her head. It looks like whoever was putting this figure together in the factory let the assembly glue get a little bit away from them, and it's smudged, and they left a big old fingerprint right there. I mean, look at that. You could probably put this through APHIS and identify the person that did this. I'm going to see if I can get rid of this with a cotton swab and some alcohol. I don't want to use acetone because I don't know like if the figure is cast in pink plastic or if the pink is only painted on. So I'm going to see if I can get this off. Well, I did my best, but I didn't completely get rid of the fingerprint. As you can see, it's still back there. But this is something that's probably unique to my figure, so it shouldn't really hurt my overall review of the figure itself. So let's just talk about Amy Rose. We finally have a female figure in the Sonic line. Hooray! She is molded quite well. She has her little bangs. Got a little bit of paint marring on the inside of the ear there. I'm gonna have to do some very careful application of acetone. Actually, and then like, it looks like this figure isn't really painted quite as well as all the others, because I got the paint mar here. You can see like the eyelash is like lighter than it should be. The top of her muzzle is white like her eyes. The inside of her mouth is painted well. Like she has a little pink tongue picked out in a red interior, so that's done well. But then you go like her dress looks like it could have used a second coat because you can kind of see the red through it. And then on her shoes, like, those lines do not look as crisp as they can be. Like, wow. Like, it really does look like they legitimately didn't put as much effort into her. And a lot of people have been bringing this up, but, the collar of her dress is missing. There's supposed to be, like, a white triangle under her chin. So, yeah, like, wow. Like, that is some legit, corners cut. Jakks Pacific. Like, I know you guys don't like making female characters, but can you at least be a little bit less passive-aggressive when you do it? But that's the paint job. What about her engineering? Well, she has a ball-jointed head, so there is posability. Of course, it can only move as far as her spines will allow because they hit her shoulders, but that's common with every Amy figure. And it's just flexible enough that you can push past it, as you can see. So you actually can get a good range on Amy's head. If I ever use her to make a custom base, then you have to be careful not to scratch up her shoulders with her own dreads, spines. And then she has the good old-fashioned pin disc shoulders, and her elbows are bent a little bit, but not so extreme that it would limit the displayability of her arms. So you can have her do stuff. Like there's like natural poses you can put her in. Nothing in the waist, but she has quite an impressive thigh gap. And her legs are pin discs, but the pin discs are attached this way. So she can do a good old-fashioned cheerleader split if you want her to. Or she can sit perfectly naturally. So, yes, I actually approve. Very, like, the way her hips are built is very good. I like the way that her hips are built. And then she has pin disc knee joints, so you can get plenty of movement out of that. And then some ball joints in the ankles, although it's deeply recessed so you don't get too much wiggle. But it's not like Amy has ever had troubles with being top heavy or anything, so you can easily get her standing however you like. So she can stand, she can pose, she is well engineered. Her joints are good. So the engineers didn't skip any corners. They just skip corners on the painting. Amy Rose comes with one accessory. It is the Pico hammer. And what else would she possibly come with? Which can easily be held right there in her hand. She has a nice firm grip on that. The Pico hammer is very well made. It's yellow, it's red, has a little bit of white between them. So yep, the hammer is beautifully made. 3 different colors on the handle alone. I like that. So yes, we do have Amy Rose wielding her hammer. It can be done very well, and that's fantastic. I am really appreciative. There's just one thing. Ta-da! The Pico Pico hammer from the Jazzwares collection. It's the same size. This is a hammer meant to be wielded by a 3-inch scaled figure, and it's the exact same size as the hammer made for the 4-inch scale figure. If it wasn't for slight differences in the proportions, I'd swear they just recycled the mold, because they're so close. You know what? I think yeah. The Jakks Pacific hammer is a tiny bit smaller than the Jazzwares hammer. So yeah, let's get Jazzwares Amy in here. That's rather amusing. The hammer being so much bigger in proportion. I guess Jazzwares Amy was just angrier, huh? Because as we all know, the size of the hammer reflects on the size of her rage. The angrier she is, the bigger the hammer gets. At least that's how it worked in the Sonic X anime, but I see no reason to say that wouldn't work that way any other way. Alright, so let's get some comparisons in there. Okay, this is another thing that I heard about Amy, and it might be the fact that Jakks Pacific messed up scaling. Because here's Sonic, and as you can see, the figures are exactly the same height if you measure to the top of their head, but if you measure by eye level, Amy's taller. Amy has a higher eye line than Sonic does. Amy is not supposed to be taller than Sonic. What's going on here? Amy should be just a little bit taller than Tails. Like, she should be intermittent in height between Tails and Sonic. And, like, Tails was very well scaled. It was one of the things people really complimented the line for way back in the day. When it first came out. I say way back in the day, it was barely a year ago. But, yeah. And she kind of has the same issue as Knuckles. Because if we put her next to Knuckles, then the eye lines look a little bit better. I think I see what happened here. Jakks Pacific, or whoever was in charge of scaling this figure, made her 4 inches tall instead of 4-inch scaled. They just made sure the figure would be 4 inches tall instead of making her the proper height she should be, which probably should have been like 3 3/4 or a little bit more than 3 3/4, but less than 3 7/8 of an inch. I'm just saying, like, if they could have made her a small fraction of an inch taller, somewhere in between Tails and Knuckles' height, then that would have been the scale for Amy. So these figures aren't exactly scaled perfectly, which is very annoying. Because, like, so far, everybody has gotten Amy Rose's scale right. Tomy did it right with the Boom figures. Jazzwares did it right with their figures. This is the first time we got an Amy Rose that doesn't quite scale with everything else. The thing that you might want to put her next to is Metal Sonic, and they're like she kind of looks like Metal Sonic's big sister. She can kind of look down on him. She's intimidating to him. So, like, this doesn't really look credible, you know? Amy's a little bit too big. They made her scale wrong, and that's really annoying. I know the kids probably won't mind, but to collectors where scale is much more important, this is kind of a really frustrating experience. And just to flex on my collection a tiny little bit, here's my other Amy Rose figures. We have the original Resource figure. Then we have the Jazzwares and Tomy figures. Tomy, of course, being the Sonic Boom interpretation of her, because they never got around to making the proper Universe Amy for that particular line. And the newest Jakks Pacific one. Yeah, like, as you can see, like, oh, you know what? Now that I look at her at this angle, I can see it's really hard. Let's get in there. You can see it's barely visible, but they did mold the collar of her dress. It's molded in. It's supposed to be there. It's just not. It's not painted. So, yeah. This Amy figure has a date with the paintbrush coming soon. Hopefully, I can do at least some touch-ups, maybe get rid of that red thing in her ear, but I gotta be careful not to get rid of the skin tone in her ear. But you know what? Let's get the 3-inch scale figures out of the way, because the resource line is actually the 4-inch scale. And as you can see, she's actually a little bit shorter in the resource figure. And you know what? That's the size she should have been. Look at that, standing next to the Jakks Pacific Sonic. That's the perfect height. This Amy figure needed to be this tall. That's what I was talking about with scale. So, yes, for whatever that's worth, the perfect scaled Amy figure does exist. It's just, this aesthetic doesn't really match, you know, like, it's primitive 90s stuff. Not that it's bad, it's just a little bit wrongly stylized, you know? So that is the thing. She's a little out of scale. It's disappointing. Alright, so, final verdict on Amy Rose. Her sculpt is great. The figure is a very well sculpted figure. The engineering of all her joints is fantastic. The posability is great for what it is. The only thing that she's missing is elbows, which I think Jakks could put elbows if they really wanted to, but for aesthetic reasons they're keeping them out, and I will respect that decision. The problem is individual QC. It seems that they're not very careful about what happens to them in the factory, what with this fingerprint, and then like the figure not being all painted all that well. And they messed up her scale just a little bit. She's a little bit too big. But then again, like, they also chose to make Mecha Sonic, like, shorter than Classic Sonic. And they chose to make Classic Sonic and Classic Mighty the same height as Modern Sonic and Mighty, as Modern Sonic. So, like, I guess we can call it par for the course for Jakks that her scaling is bad. It's just that it kind of hurts more here because this is actually a figure that you wanted to scale, especially when you know that they can do scale properly. So, like, it really seems that they did a little bit of phoning in. Also, it's kind of hilarious that her hammer... Oh, by the way, her hammer is physically lighter than the Pico Pico hammer the Jazzwares figure uses. But, you know, that's fine because it just doesn't throw her off balance when she holds it. So that's actually fine. I just find it amusing that the hammer is legitimately almost the exact same size as the one made for the smaller scale. Okay, so that is everything I have to say about Amy Rose right now. Thank you all for watching, and this is Wakeangel2K1 signing off.